So much to talk about today. Recording in progress, I heard that. Okay, may we get an approval of today's agenda?
Make a
So
motion to
approved.
approve.
Motion, second.
Thank you, thank you. How about the minutes? Did everyone have a chance to review them?
There is a correction in the minutes. I just like to make it clear that I did mention something with Carmel about accessibility, that we're all working together with actors. That paragraph was missing. I know it's on the recording. I had trouble listening to it, but I just want to make it clear that I did mention something about accessibility as well as I know Trudy said it as well, and I said it too.
Okay, we're trying to not go word for word on the minutes because we do have recordings and the minutes are 7 pages long. So we're gonna actually be, you're gonna see us with shorter and shorter minutes instead of longer and longer minutes.
There'll be minutes instead of hours. Is that what
Yeah.
you mean? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so if it's all right that we keep the minutes as they are, I will get into my report. I'm sure you've all seen it on the news, but the MTA at its meeting yesterday was looking to approve 4 new companies for Accessoride and various parts of the Accessoride experience, broker service, and all these other things. One of the companies that was not included was Curb. Curb is one of the current companies that is offering the services and by all accounts is doing a fine job. But apparently our former chief of accessibility let it be known that among the bidders, Curb's bid was the best, and that violated some rules. So Curb was removed from the list of companies that were supposed to have been approved yesterday. Because of this, Curb filed for a temporary restraining order to forbid the MTA to go forward with their procurements. The judge granted that. It will likely be heard before next month's committee meeting, or excuse me, combined board and committee meeting. And we will know whether the MTA can thus proceed with the 4 new companies, which all look fine, but Curb is protesting their elimination because of what happened. And the IG has already done a report on what happened, and she is not happy with what the former MTA accessibility chief did. So we will see how this plays out in court. There is no question there will be no gaps between current service and future service. Anyone have any questions about that?
Andrew, this is Chris. I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you say the chief, which chief are we talking about they're having a problem with? Is it Alex or Carmela?
No, it was something that former chief of accessibility, Ella Gooden, did. Not Quamel.
Yeah. Because I've been at meetings with Carmel for the last 2 weeks, and this is, I thought it was Carmel. I was going to say that's impossible because Carmel.
No, definitely not Quamel.
Yeah, and the problem is for some of the advocacy groups, they're getting wrong facts and mix up the information. So it's sometimes what I'm seeing is, this is when I bumped into them the other day, they're getting mixed information from the press. So we got to be really careful what the press is saying and what the MTA is saying. And I had mentioned this to Craig also the other 2 days ago. There is a concern of mixed communication in the disability group as well as the senior group. So we've got to be very clear what you're saying.
Miscommunication about why Curb was eliminated, or what service is going to happen?
Everything when you just mentioned it.
Oh, I mean, all the news reports have been pretty clear on the reason for Curb's elimination and
well,
what's...
the Curb thing, some of them are complaining, some are not, but there is some they're claiming that curb has not been cut, and I told them they're getting all mixed information. I'm just giving you a
Okay.
heads up.
Well, that's too bad. Hopefully it will get straightened out.
Okay.
I'm sure once the court case is heard, it will definitely be in the press and very clear how we move
Okay.
forward and with which companies.
I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. As everybody now knows, 24 hours. Trudy, do you have a question?
No, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh.
trying to do two things at once. I'll tell you what the governor's doing right now. Nope.
All right, can I proceed?
Keep going. Yeah, please,
Okay.
please. I'm pushing
So-
the wrong button.
Okay, sure. So as everybody knows, 24
I'm
hours.
actually going to mute myself so that you don't hear any of my other sound. Or
Thank
can
you.
somebody mute me? I don't know how to mute myself. So can you mute?
Yes, we can.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Yeah, you did it.
Yep.
Okay, so 24-hour service obviously has returned. We couldn't be happier about this. I'm sure many workers, restaurant owners, bar owners, club owners, and everyone else that has employees and or patrons through the night are thrilled about this. Emergency service workers. The cleaning campaign obviously continues. Every train at least once, usually twice a day, stations twice a day. There have been some exceptions where we have seen some dirtying up of various stations. I believe Demetrius will address those later, and how we act upon those problems. But to get people back, and fortunately they appear to be coming back as we hit a milestone last week with 2.3 million subway riders one day, which is fabulous. Much earlier than was anticipated, certainly by the McKinsey estimates. We have now got a Take the Train campaign. And if I have seen many versions of it, I think it's great. If you've been in the system, you've seen the electronic signs showing you Port Jefferson is open, Greenport is open, Walkway over the Hudson is open, Bethpage State Park is open, Tarrytown Riverwalk. I mean, all of these places that can be gotten to by train and you don't have to drive. I think it's a great campaign. I think some celebrities are getting involved in the campaign, and you will see it pretty much everywhere. I think there will be announcements at ball games. I mean, just almost every kind of venue you can imagine. I think this Take the Train campaign will be heralded, and hopefully it will yield some results because we absolutely want people back. There have been some great changes to the timing of becoming an all-electric bus fleet. We were supposed to, I mean, it's the final date is still 2040 that we will be all electric, but by the end of 2021, we will have 60 electric buses in service rather than 45. So they have geared up some of the acquisition of our electric buses, and they will be both regular length, articulated length. So we are becoming cleaner and greener. Absolutely. The MTA itself, as you know, removes 17 million metric tons of greenhouse gases annually, which is amazing. So watch for an electric bus on the route that you take, because that is coming. Also, there will be workforce inoculation mobile vaccine vans that will be going around from depot to depot to help get employees vaccinated. Approximately 60% of the workforce is vaccinated, but the MTA wants to make it as easy as possible for everybody. So they're coming to your place of, or their place of work, and they will start with the Jackie Gleason Depot in Brooklyn. So folks who work in and around the depot will be able to go to the depot and get to the van outside the depot and get vaccinated. And this will be going around various city depots. So this is great news. We certainly want as many employees vaccinated as possible. Another word on the cleaning schedule. As I mentioned, both trains and state, even though there's 24-hour service in place now, folks are being asked to leave the trains at the end of the line like they were before, so that cleaning can take place. If it doesn't work, the trains will be cleaned at another place or in the yards, wherever. But the cleaning definitely continues. Now, last month's meeting, Stewart raised an issue about the cleaning, particularly of Fulton Center Station, the long mezzanine between William Street and Broadway, and I have looked into this, Stewart, and did find out that the station is cleaned 3 times a day, on a morning, on an afternoon and evening shift. The Fulton passageway, the long one that you mentioned, is cleaned every time during those shifts. So that's 3 times a day. I mentioned that you had seen, you had some issues with the area near William Street, and Demetrius, our speaker, who you will hear later, will probably be addressing it during his talk today, because
Andrew,
they have not heard any complaints about Fulton, but the fact that you have some and that we've told them about it has now energized them to look for exactly where it's happening and who is missing it, if in fact it is cleaned 3 times a day.
Right. Andrew, I want to thank you. You know, there's a difference between schedules and actual practice.
Yes.
There definitely has been a difference at the end of the William Street end. So it had some effect.
Well, that's something.
But there does not appear to, I mean, I can't tell you for the interim. I could tell you in the morning, I could tell you at the end of the day. I still don't believe what they're saying in terms of that frequency, but there definitely was an effort to spiff up the William Street end. So thank you.
Great. And I'm sure our speaker today will be addressing this issue, and will ask you what times of day, how many days a week are you noticing this messiness? And yeah, like you said, if you've seen an improvement, he would like to know from whence you saw it.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I also had to report the other day, I don't know who, a passenger disposed of all of their refreshments under a seat. It was spilled drinks, crumbs of food. I mean, it was just a disgrace. So hopefully that train got taken out of service and cleaned when it reached the end of its line. I always give the car number. So Demetrius is great, by the way. He is very responsive. We're really lucky to have him. Moving on, due to the safety and security concerns, and you've heard a lot about this in the news recently, lots of additional cameras are being installed in the system. These are not the cameras that we ultimately want, but these are cheap, quickly installed cameras that can take decent resolution photos of people if they're committing a crime, or if they see something bad happening. They're not monitored in real time, but the video is kept for 30 days and can be looked at should an issue arise. Obviously, everybody heard yesterday about the big police brouhaha between the MTA, the NYPD. Yesterday, for the first time, we actually learned, or the MTA learned, and now because it happened during the public board meeting, everybody learned that we thought we had 644 officers added to the system. We did have that. There is a minimum of 500 officers, but we did get a bump up to 644. But there is a total of actually 2,663 officers now assigned to the subways. They're not all in service at the same time. And sometimes, should there be an emergency above ground, or if you're on an elevated line below you on the street below, they will be taken out of that. But Chief O'Reilly was pretty adamant about saying she believes this is a good amount of police. The MTA is so happy now. Apparently, the NYPD will now disclose how these folks are distributed throughout the system. I asked a few questions. Is this because they keep stressing the rush hours, the morning and the evening rush hour? And I wanted to know, do we have these police in the off-peak hours? Are they absolutely distributed throughout the system? Are certain areas concentrated and others neglected? We will hope to get an answer to those soon. But finally, the NYPD and the MTA are talking in a way they should have been talking a while ago. So, and even the IG came out with a report yesterday, wondering why it took this kind of badgering by a mayoral appointee on the board to get this information for the MTA, why the NYPD wouldn't just share it, or the mayor's office share it. So I think we made some progress yesterday. I do see Chris's hand up. Chris, do you want to say something?
Yeah, the one thing I just want to add, Andrew, as of this morning, I've been doing mass force definitely on the Brighton line, and definitely have for the since this week, I have seen a lot of NYPD on regular uniform and undercover. And I have to say that due to the problems lately on the Manhattan Bridge, there were a lot of NYPD present to deal with not just crowd control, but people not wearing a mask at all. That has been a major issue. And I'm glad to see that. This is Transit 34 I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've never seen actually enforcement of the mask wearing mandate.
They did it
But
today.
I will
They
say
did it today.
it's pretty much 98, 99%. If I see an occasional person without a mask, that's what I normally see.
Well, just for the record, they were definitely got someone at Kings Highway and Newkirk Plaza. So I
Okay,
just want to make it clear that we have the undercover officers. They have caught someone who was very inappropriate, and they did catch them. So I do want to say that in that section of the line, they have been there. I have definitely seen them on the Nancy at 62nd, Bay Parkway on the D, and I do see them on the trains going back and forth. They're going back and forth at least 10 times during the rush hour.
if you're going to call the N Nancy, why aren't you calling the D Douglas?
No, I call it Delta.
Okay. All right, so let me also say.
Andrew,
Oh,
Stuart has his hand raised.
oh, I'm sorry, I don't see it.
During
Actual hand.
during prior meetings, I had asked some of those issues you're talking about in terms of deployment. They're never going to share with you how that number is deployed across shifts or where.
Not with me. They'll likely share it with Sarah Feinberg,
Yeah,
but not with
probably,
me.
but
Yeah.
but I think though we need to follow up on a subset of that, because if the media and the MTA are still saying that there are issues with fare evasion, okay, so how they're deployed and how they're looking at that issue is still something that was a concern to this group, and their response in terms of how they're deployed at certain key stations, I think we need an answer to that question. What does that mean? Does it mean frequency of train service? Does it mean population of ridership? That may not be where the crime is occurring. So I think we still have unanswered questions, and I don't think that we should let that go.
Stuart, one of the things that I think that's come up in these conversations also has been sort of the separation a little bit of the crime that's of fare evasion and the other crime that's happening below ground, and the safety issues that riders are feeling. But that people are, people want to see cops on platforms and patrolling underground and on trains rather than at turnstiles. And that's what Sarah Feinberg has been also saying. And that's been sort of the thrust of what the MTA has been addressing as well. They're not going to tell us where they're deploying people. What we've been continuing to hammer is, that data-driven deployment should be the ongoing mantra, that people want to see, the riders want to see people in uniform. They don't really care if it's NYPD or MTA PD. Anybody who's going to make them feel safer is going to be helpful. That there are, fare evasion, and we did see obviously the news reports this week too, and it wasn't even, surprisingly, wasn't even really brought up at the board meeting yesterday.
Yeah, I appreciate that thought and those comments, but they also have the undercover force. And no one was saying, and neither am I suggesting, that they utilize uniform personnel. But they owe us an explanation of how they're addressing it. And remember, we're statutorily constituted. They can say something that doesn't violate patrol strength that addresses that issue, because fare evasion was a big topic of this group. So
Absolutely.
I don't accept the answer, and I'm putting it back on our chair that we need to readdress.
We'll
this
try to get
way.
answers on that.
Violate-
I mean, I understand that writers like to see a uniform presence both on the platforms, on the in the entrances. But you know, with me, I know that the folks who are committing most of the crime didn't pay the fare. So if you stop them at the turnstiles, you've stopped them. But crime has been overall down in the subways, but a little bit up on Metro North, interestingly, in the month of April. But here's a scary fact: more than 70% of people convicted of assaults had a history of mental illness. So clearly, we need to take care of that population and make sure that they are not a danger to themselves or others. That's a sobering fact. Over 70% had a history of mental illness. Okay, moving along. As far as financing, Bob Ferran, our Chief Financial Officer, gave an update. Because of COVID and because there were pretty pessimistic ridership and financial expectations, and we are above those. He mentioned that revenues are above budget, and now they are working on their July financial plan, which I assume we will get a look at hopefully by sometime in June, although it may just come at the July board meeting. We will see, but revenues are above, and that is the case for Long Island Railroad and Metro North as well. So that is pretty good news. East Side Access and Third Track are continuing. I know Trudy wants to speak a little.
Sorry, Andrew, I meant to unmute myself, but I accidentally muted you. I apologize. And because I was going to tell you that Bert has his hand raised.
I'm unmuted now, yes?
Just a question, what is the status of the fare increase at this point? Has there been any further?
There has been no discussion, Bert.
No discussion.
I do know that if it goes like into the fall, it will have exceeded the time and they would have to do public hearings once again. I don't believe there's an appetite for a fare increase on a lot of board members' parts at this point. We want to get people back in. It's great that they're still using off-peak fares on the commuter rails. Let's get people back on the system and let's get back to normal, and then we can talk about those things, I think is the way people are thinking.
Thank you.
The capital plan is largely resuming, not 100%, but is resuming, and East Side Access and Long Island Railroad Third Track are certainly moving ahead after the problem, the accident, the fatality. At Mineola, they have a new work plan and they are moving forward now. I believe you can go online and see what the Maryland Avenue and Mineola stations are under construction and lots of others. And you can see how this is progressing. Something very exciting is they did a Penn Access is now moving forward. They've done a contract for an environmental assessment. So the Bronx will get 4 new stations: Co-op City, Morris Park, Parkchester, Van Nest, and Hunts Point. 3 of those 4 are far from existing subways, so they will be serving a population who has seen trains racing through their area, but those were Amtrak trains, so they were not stopping anywhere. But the New Haven line of Metro North will be, and will cut the travel time to Midtown from Co-op City from something like 90 minutes down to 25 to 30 minutes, which is amazing. While Hunts Point does have subway service, number 6, local and express service, it will also now have a station on Metro North so that people can do reverse commuting to jobs in New Rochelle or Stamford or wherever. Or to Midtown, if you want to pay the fare differential. We are working on, obviously, on a Freedom Ticket Phase 2 that you've seen something of, and Bradley will likely be reporting on some later, which might make those stations even more accessible with a lower fare. We would like to see a Freedom Ticket, Atlantic Ticket style fare on all stations within city limits. Trudy, did you want to say something about East Side Access at this point?
Yes, yes.
That's where it will fit in.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, because I didn't know if I was still muted. I'll be very brief because part of the governor's presentation was a 4-minute little video that says it better than I can, actually that better than he did in his half-hour presentation before it. And I would strongly suggest, and Andrew, you should be able to get it. If not, I'll, make some calls and try to get it for our PCAC meeting next week, because it is really amazing what has been done and what will continue to be done. And basically, it's not only East Side Access, but it's also a total rebuilding of Harold Interlocking.
Yep.
The governor didn't know why it was called Harold Interlocking, so I'm going to let him know. It was named after Harold Fisher, who was the chairman of
Yes, indeed.
the MTA. Yeah, but the governor didn't know.
And that's the busiest rail interlocking in the U.S.
Exactly, but part of East Side Access is that it has been, and it's just being totally rebuilt. And there are going to be,
yes.
What?
In cooperation with Amtrak.
In cooperation with Amtrak. But what I really think, and by the way, Andrew, you would like this too, and anybody else who knows him, one of the people with the governor was Jano Lieber, and he gave a big shout out to Jano. Jano has also been somewhat speaking or answering some questions. And if we can get Jano to make, I guess it's too late to get him to next week's PCAC meeting, but it would be so helpful not only to talk about East Side Access, but the other projects that he's working on.
We'll definitely get Jano, but not for next week. We have a speaker.
No, we can't for next week, but let's try to get him for the next PCAC meeting after that. And not just for us, because the one thing that was made very clear today is that East Side Access is as much Long Island Railroad, but it also, or as the governor said, transit drives, and he used that word on purpose, transit drives the economy. And as I said, I think if we should be able to get this 4-minute video for next week's PCAC meeting, and rather than hearing me speak about what's in it and what the governor talked about, I think it can be said in this 4-minute video.
Yeah,
and
we should be able to get a copy of the video.
I've already asked for a copy of it.
What?
Great.
I've already asked for a copy.
Oh, you knew about it?
I'm watching the same press conference you are.
Oh, okay. But then the other thing is that Jano also and the governor did not know about. They started talking about how this is going to, if it's going to have any effect on the fare or reductions or anything, and he didn't know about, or Jano did not know about our oh God, what's it called? We just said our freedom ticket. So if you can also, get a message to Jano.
We'll share it with Jano. Absolutely. We've shared it with the chairman Foy and
yeah,
Phil.
well, but Jano, because freedom ticket has a direct effect on what he's trying to do. Freedom ticket just being a precursor, is that word? Something that comes before. Precursor of the brain is not functioning too well, trying to do two things at once. a precursor of what they're talking about that East Side Access will bring. And I mean, I could go on and on and on about this, but I think I've talked enough because I know I said I wasn't going to make a long.
Once we get the video, Trudy, we'll distribute it to everyone.
Well, maybe we can show it, and it's going to be a virtual meeting next week. Maybe we can just take 4 minutes out of the PCAC meeting. And I don't know who's the speaker or whatever, but this is something that is right now. And I think that our Long Island Railroad, and it also has an effect on Metro North and the Spuyten Duyvil. I mean, it's fascinating what this is going to do. And my last suggestion, by August, we should be able to, have our regular August tour. And it might be, if we could arrange it, Lisa, to go on a walkthrough, because they are now taking people down because it's all the messy work has now been completed, and it would be great to be able to not walk the whole 8 miles to Harold Interlocking, but at least take a walk through from 42nd to 48th Street, which is where all the entrances are going to be.
Right, I've actually been in touch with them about that, about rescheduling the trip that we had to call off last year.
But can this be the
We can
trip?
get a ride through, Trudy. We can get a ride through Interlocking with a full explanation of what is being done.
We don't know if we can get anything yet, so let's not jump the gun and let's.
No, as I said, obviously,
when we get there. The
Lisa,
conversation
obviously, great minds run in the same path. So as long as you're on top of it, because I was amazed on what I saw this morning.
Okay,
really,
thanks.
I had been told a little about it before, but this is phenomenal. If anybody has any questions, but otherwise, let's wait until we see the video next week.
We had a good presentation on it also at the NYCTRC meeting last month too. So that they've been staying on top of it also, but yeah, absolutely. And Andy points out that the governor's YouTube and Facebook and Twitter pages will have that as well. We'll grab it if we can't get it from Larry.
Yeah, but just so that everybody has a chance to see it at the same time and then talk about it. It's phenomenal.
Yep, and I neglected to mention that President Rinaldi of Metro North mentioned during yesterday's meeting that as I think most folks know, the Waterbury branch is under reconstruction. They are installing cab signaling, but they're also going to put in an overlay of PTC. So much, Waterbury branch was exempt from having to install PTC because of the lack of frequency of trains, but it is getting it anyway, along with cab signaling. So that's a piece of good news. And I think that is it for my report. Lisa, want to give yours? And I think Bradley has a report, an update as well.
Sure. We are I'm just trying to figure out where to start. We're continuing to work closely. Bradley and I are continuing to work closely together and with the other councils on aspects of work like the East Side Access on WageWorks, and in fact and you'll hear about that more at PCAC meeting next week on WageWorks, where we had a press conference with Senator Schumer on Long Island last week to bring national attention to the issue and the concerns that are raised about people whose funds are who cannot access their pre-tax transit benefit funds and who may no longer be traveling to work, commuting to work. So the senator has promised to move that forward either legislatively as needed, but through hoping that the IRS will address it through regulation.
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you say there was a member of Congress at this press conference as well as Senator Schumer?
No, State Senator Todd Kaminsky was there.
Oh, state
Um,
senator, okay.
Yes,
Because
as
if you
well.
want IRS, you need to get somebody, a federal, beside, another person.
Besides Senator Schumer?
Yeah, someone, from the House as well would be nice.
Well, there were 5 members of the House who started a letter writing campaign to the IRS last September and got nowhere. And they continue to write to the IRS, and the IRS has basically said, well, I don't know why people have so much money trapped in this. It's their fault for not stopping it. And so we've been working with those members of the House, and also then just bumped it up to Senator Schumer. And he has raised it to the level of, to his level. So
Great.
if it needs to go through legislation, he has said, well, there's a couple infrastructure bills that are happening right now that we could tack it on to, but he's hoping to bring it to the IRS's attention to the point where it will, they'll either do one-time amnesty or figure something out to allow people to get funds. There were 3 people at this press conference, 3 commuters all on the Long Island Railroad, or 2 former commuters, who among the 3 of them had close to $3,000 in these funds, and that they cannot access.
That's unreal.
Yeah, I had spoken with somebody in Metro North Territory the other day who has money that's not just in pre-tax dollars, but in post-tax dollars as well, because she was supplementing funds for her tickets, and she's changing jobs in 2 weeks, in 1 week now. And if she changes jobs, she would lose those funds because you can't take it with you. And so this has been an issue that LARCC has been working on for just about a year. So we're really, really glad to see some traction on that. And yes, Andrew, I did raise the issue about wanting to speak with him about, and we're trying to get that meeting and move that forward.
Good. Great.
We are continuing to work with our colleagues in advocacy, both locally and nationally. And in fact, today there is an event, it's happening right now, over my right shoulder to the east, north and east, right off the 7 line, looking regarding transit equity and funding and transportation authorization. Which is the bigger picture of the transit, transportation funding legislation. So there are 2 things that are happening in Congress right now. One is the Jobs Act, which is the more immediate bill package that they'd like to have passed. That's $1 trillion package that you hear a lot about now with senses of urgency, that they're hoping to get done by July 4th, which, even if it's Labor Day, that would still go a long way towards helping to support transit and a number of other infrastructure related projects. And then there's the longer term legislation that looks at formula funding, at grant funding, at the whole approach that the federal government takes towards the way it splits its money between highways and transit. So we're working on those 2 fronts, locally and nationally. And we haven't had as much time to do that lately because we've been interviewing.
A little short-staffed.
We've been a little short-staffed. So we've also had the opportunity to do some interviews for some staff. So we are very pleased that hopefully we'll be moving ahead in that direction soon too. We've been, I'm going to turn it over to Bradley, who's going to talk about some of the work that he is involved in, because he's got 3, 4, 22 things on his plate also. Indeed. So again, if we are unable to get back to you quickly, or if there's something that we miss, many apologies. We are those plates that are spinning around on poles right now. So,
And you're about to interview some possible additions, which is great.
Right. Absolutely. That is great. Definitely.
So we shouldn't be short-staffed for too much longer, hopefully.
Hopefully we'll have these 2 positions filled by the end of the summer.
Great.
So Bradley?
Yeah, hopefully we'll have them before the end of the summer. I'm more hopeful for like July by the latest. That would be
That
really
would be
nice so that
amazing.
we can,
I'd say one of them. I wouldn't
Yeah.
For
say-
sure.
yeah. But as hard as we can push to get them in would be great. But yes, we do have a lot going on. The main thing that I've been working on, of course, is Freedom Ticket. We did have a really great meeting with Phil Eng and Kathy Rinaldi. And I don't want to speak for them, but we came out of the meeting feeling pretty good about everything. The one thing that they did say is it seems that we're all kind of on the same page, that we all want to see what we can do to relieve riders' commutes, financially and travel time wise. So they're definitely on board. They are mulling it over right now, and hopefully they will get back to us sooner than later. I will be reaching out to some people at the staff level to see what their thoughts and concerns are at this point, so it gives us a better idea of where we're at. But we are very hopeful and really wanting to release this by mid-June. We've let them know that, so hopefully they can get back to us before then, so we can get everything together and get this out there and be in front of fare reductions and the like. So there's.
And Bradley, want to say a word about that it's not just within city limits that the new proposal entails, but also some discounts in suburban territory as well.
Well, we don't want to say too much because we want to allow the agency presidents to also come back to us, talk about their operating concerns and issues, and to come out with a thunderous noise.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to say is it's got universal appeal.
Yeah, and just in general, again, without giving away too much, is that we looked at this pretty holistically, and we looked at it for the entire region, because right now the entire region needs help. And so we do have some recommendations for both city and suburban riders. And we're not, one thing I can say is we're not being prescriptive. We know that there's already a great model within the Atlantic Ticket program. So basically we're saying, look at this model, it's worked. There's other case studies that we've included where when you reduce fares, it actually encourages ridership to return. So that's kind of—
it fills
the
empty
gist of it.
seats.
Yes, exactly. So that's really the main thing that I'm working on. We also have some other projects that, Shell's actually been very helpful with the Freedom Ticket report. And so I will shed light on that later. But we are also working on a whole host of other things, just some little blog pieces that we would like to get up and running. Also, Gav Masaryk was our intern since last September, and she's actually accepted an internship with the MTA, so she's no longer with us at this point, but hopefully will return with us in the fall. And she left us with some great work on the electric bus electrification. She's also left us with a lot of stuff on MTA solar, and we are kind of behind the scenes right now working on that stuff, and hopefully we can share that with the group a little bit later once we're able to make some leadway and get some more information on those projects we're working on. So
great.
Yeah, so a lot going on. We're happy to answer any questions on those. Also wanted to let you know, for those of you who don't, that Rob Marino, who has been a great friend to New York City Transit Riders Council and PCAC over the years, is retiring. Kate, I'm not sure if yesterday was his last day or today or tomorrow, but
it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah,
So,
good guy.
Yep, great guy, good guy, and we will miss him. So
we absolutely will. Chris's hand is up. Chris.
My hand has been up also. Okay.
Oh, I don't see yours.
your hand.
Did you see my hand up or not?
No, we don't.
Okay, then I'll go right to Chris, please.
No problem.
I know, but the conductor's going on mad too.
Chris?
They want to make it
Chris, talk
very
to us.
clear. No, we're mentioning all the trains that they have to make the announcement, so it's a good sign.
We can't hear you, Chris. Sorry, can't hear you. We can see the top of your head, but we just can't hear you.
I have one I got when I first started on transit. It was one of the ones that was thrown out. It was the bus sticker.
Huh?
Trudy, I think you should go.
Chris, turn off your video. 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 Your video, turn off your video. I'm stopping your video. Okay, now speak. Unmute yourself, now speak. Okay, no.
It's not
Can you
working,
unmute?
Trudy?
Can you unmute him? Oh, there he goes.
Chris, now try.
No.
No.
I hear his background. I just don't hear him.
Okay. In the meantime, can I just have 2 minutes while he's trying to get straightened out before our speaker comes?
Please, go ahead.
I've been raising my hand all the way through. Oh, no, that's impossible.
I'm gonna have to mute
Chris, we
him.
can't hear you at all, so we're gonna need to mute you, sorry. Okay, Trudy.
All right, Trudy.
Trudy, now you're muted.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I had to unmute myself. I thought you were unmuting me. Okay, 2 things very quickly. Lisa, what you talked about with the Long Island people, and I can bring it up at next week's meeting, but Chuck Schumer has so much on his plate, and it is really important that they contact their local members of Congress, not Todd Kaminsky, who's wonderful, but he's a state senator. He's a state elected official. But definitely they should contact, wherever it is that they live, which member of Congress.
No, they've been working with their local levels, their local members of Congress, with Kathleen Wright, with Tom Suozzi, with Lee Zeldin,
Yes.
previously with Pete King, and with another member.
The
of
new
Congress
guy,
as well.
the new guy who took Peter King's place. Yeah.
Well, no,
whose
they've been
name
working working on this since last year. We have a guy in
Okay.
New Jersey who's been working on this. We've got people up in Metro North
Okay.
Territory. We've got people
Well,
in
okay.
Maine
If I
who are
could,
working
if
on
I
it.
can just finish my thought, because you said they were going to try to tack this on with the infrastructure.
That's
now,
what Senator Schumer said.
okay. But since I don't know when you met with him, but right now there are negotiations going on about if there's going to be any infrastructure bill at all. And
Right.
yesterday, the Republicans came in with a new proposal, taking the 1.7 trillion, I love these numbers, down to just a little around 1 trillion, taking off 0.7 trillion off. I don't know how that is in real money, but whatever. And right now they're definitely not adding anything onto it. I'm just bringing you up to date on the latest that's been going on down there. That's number one. And I just think that it is important that, whatever they're trying to do, that they do it as soon as possible. The other thing is that, Bradley, since a freedom ticket or whatever it's called right now, Atlantic ticket, what is it the name that it now goes by? But the discount, came up today, that I think that, I don't know where your report stands, but it's going to reach a point, and especially since the whole question of discounts came up today, that we release your report as soon as possible before it's, with all your hard work that you've done, that it just gets lost in the shuffle with the discussion of discounts because of East Side access and completion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a suggestion, but knowing how the media operates, if it doesn't appear in the papers, then it didn't happen. So or on television or something.
Yeah, Trudy, if I can just respond to that, that is exactly why we're trying to push to get this thing out as soon as possible, because we know that the discussions are happening. And of course, we want to be in front of those conversations. In the report, we definitely do address the various things that you're talking about with East Side access and all that involved. So it's definitely in there. But yes, I completely 100% agree with you that we're trying to push this out.
I think we're all aware how hard you have been working on this, along with everything else that you've been doing. And I would just hate to see it get lost in the shuffle. So,
Yes, thank you.
are we gonna have a chance? Are we gonna have a chance to look at it before it's released?
Yes, of course. And I plan to do what I do with the first version of it and all the other reports, is I will be presenting it to, probably because of the timing now, PCAC's next week. Yeah, whether we have to do a special presentation or whatnot, we will be giving you the information before we put it out to the public.
Okay, but again, I will repeat myself. My advice is to do it as soon as possible before it gets lost in the shuffle.
We hear you. Thank
That's
you.
it.
Chris, did your audio problems get resolved? Or did I see that he actually may have left?
I'm
you're
here,
back.
Andrew.
Good.
I had to reboot because something interfered my signal. The only thing I was just saying about Robert is
Oh God.
great honor to work with him.
Say that again about Robert?
It was an honor to work with him, Chris. I heard you. I'll take the message back.
Oh, great.
Thank you, Kathy. And I have to say, when I worked with him, he was, we always had a great time together when we did with 85 for. We had this laugh, we worked together. I'm gonna miss him, but with Luca Palmer, it's still gonna be an honor. It will still be hardly missed because we always had a great laugh and great moments. So I just want to really say it was a super great honor to work with him.
Thank you, Chris. And as Kate just put into the chat, she will make sure he knows your comments and everybody's best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trudy, is your hand up?
No,
Sharon,
my hand was up from before. It finally went
all of
up.
a sudden your picture came on, so I'm just wondering why. Oh, but
No,
it probably
no.
happens when you do any kind of thing that makes any kind of sound. It activates your
Well,
on-screen.
but my hand, whatever it is, no, my hand is not up. I said what I had to say. Brief.
Great, thank you. Let's see if our speaker has arrived yet. No. But he will be here shortly.
He's not yet.
Does anyone have any item of old business they would like to bring up?
I just wanted to let everyone know, in case you hadn't heard yet, on June 4th, is it June 4th, Bradley? Music Underground returns. So enjoy this.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's a sign of something.
Sign of something. Sharon has her actual hand raised.
She sure does.
We're very happy to have the Wassaic weekend service restored, but they have some kind of misconnection down there where the Wassaic train comes in and the New York train goes out. The upshot was they had it marked wrong on the board this weekend, and we all waited at track 2 while our train just left because the Wassaic train was on track 1 or vice versa. Could someone mention to Metro North that it would be very nice to have the signage there straightened out and connected so that we don't have to pay $100 to take
Absolutely.
a cab?
That's ridiculous that somebody missed a connection because of that.
2 of us did.
What day was this, Sharon?
Sunday at the train that left New York at 11. The Grand Central, left Grand Central at 11. The connection was at 1:05. It said track 1, whatever. Anyway, it would be nice to straighten that out. There was
Okay,
another
absolutely.
thing too. I can't, I'll come back if I remember.
Thanks. We'll make a note of that.
So, Demetrius is not here. Andy Pollock has 2 matters that he would like to raise regarding.
I see Jason's hand is up as well.
Okay.
All right, so 2 matters. I'm pleased to announce that I will regularly start commuting in July. One of my jobs is reinstating me, so I'll be taking the Q31 sometime after July 4th on a 2-day-a-week basis. And second, regarding the Q46. A friend of mine who works at the Lake Success Shopping Plaza has been noticing a lot of runs going missing. And I understand that there is limited staff available right now to drive the buses, but I have been hearing good things that the hiring freeze is being lifted. So hopefully some ground will be made up at the Queens Village Bus Depot, especially if or when I get reinstated back to Long Island Jewish.
Yes, and I believe the hiring freeze is being lifted, and there are some runs on the subways also that are not being met due to shortage of staff. And I hope that that will be rectified really soon. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Jason.
Yes. Hi, Andrew, and hi, everybody.
Hi, Jason.
It is good to be back. Several things that I want to bring to your attention. One, on Monday when I was doing my remarks along aboard the Staten Island Ferry, I saw 2 transit PDs officers with canine dogs. I want to know if they are part of transit police or if they're not. We don't know if this is common or if it's uncommon. And also, I saw something very uncommon too at 34th Street Herald Square, that you had 2 NYPD officers outside the fare control area and 2 private security officers inside the fare control area. So the MTA internal report is partly correct, but we are seeing more police presence more within Manhattan. But what is outside Manhattan, the presence gets even less, and less. And
You mean the presence of police are less outside of Manhattan? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, Andrew.
Well, one of the places that they have put a lot of police is in downtown Brooklyn, from what I understand. So I'm not sure that that's true for
Downtown
all of
Brooklyn?
outside.
That's correct, Andrew. They're there.
Yeah.
Because my nearest station that has a transit police precinct is Transit 30, that's right at Hoyt Skimmelhorn. And very often I don't see police officers patrolling the station itself, but in other stations like Atlantic Avenue, Barclays Center, Nevin Street, Borough Hall, I don't see them as much. Not even at J Street Metro Tech.
We're gonna try, I think if you've been here for the whole meeting, we're gonna try to get a little more idea of how they're being deployed, when, where, how much of the system, in what shifts, all of this kind of stuff. And we will certainly report it once we know it, if it is not giving away something that should be top security and high level and only for the NYPD and New York City Transit Management. We certainly would not divulge something like that. But I do see that our speaker is with us now. So let me please introduce Demetrius Critchlow, Senior Executive Vice President for Subways. There are so many responsibilities under that title, I can't even begin to describe them. But I will tell you, he really knows his stuff. I email him whenever I see an issue, either signage, announcement related, debris related. Demetrius is really on the job, knows his stuff, has had several important positions in the MTA, and we're really thrilled at his Executive Vice President of New York City Transit position now. So without further ado, let me introduce Demetrius Critchlow.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. You're too kind.
No, not at all.
Well, so first, thank you for for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you folks. I am probably as candid as they come, so please forgive me in advance. I am not a politician. I'll tell you about where I came from, what I've done, what got me here, and I'm really an open book. So happy to answer any questions that you may have, and if there's something I can't answer, I guarantee I'll get back to you on it. So I started my career. So even before then, let's start. I'm third generation transit. My grandfather back in the 40s was a porter at New York City Transit. And my father was a car inspector at New York City Transit. So it was a natural progression to wind up coming to the MTA because I saw how, we had the opportunity to really do really good things. And my father always showed us the value of hard work, and he genuinely loved what he did. And he still, now he's been retired. It's 25 years, and still alive, still happy. And, that's thanks to God. So I started at the Long Island Railroad, much to his dismay. He said, what are you doing? I applied literally for New York City Transit on the bus side at the same time as I applied for the Long Island Railroad. And I would say within days, I got the offer from both opportunities. I went to the Long Island Railroad. I started as an assistant signalman. For those who aren't familiar with the title, assistant signalmen do a lot of the repairs on gates, your signal appliances, track circuits, and the like. Great job. Gave me a lot of hands-on experience on the roadside. I dug ditches. I climbed poles. It was really grunt work, but you got satisfaction at the end of the day of, actually accomplishing what you set out to do. And sometimes in these managerial roles, the vision is a lot longer, and you may never see what you put in place. But, at the first levels of the operation, you get to see it. You go out there to fix a problem, it's fixed. At the end of the day, you go home, you're happy. So I moved from a assistant signalman to a tower operator, which would be a block operator, Long Island Railroad, tower operator here. I went to assistant dispatcher to dispatcher. I moved to the Rail Control Center, or there it's called the Jamaica Control Center for Long Island Railroad. I worked in 204 for a good period of time before going into management. When I went into management, I went on the field side and then moved on to Penn Station Central Control. So I was the manager and that handled the movement of Penn Central Control, managing Long Island Railroad, Amtrak, and New Jersey Transit employees. Then I went to the rules office, which handles all the FRA rules for the Long Island Railroad. Then they had a program at MTA under Lee Sander, where he was taking, he selected individuals from within the organization. We interviewed to go work for him as his operational special assistant. And I was selected, the first candidate that was selected to work with Lee Sander. Great opportunity to work with an executive at that time was just amazing. And I handled anything that he had. Anytime he had something from a politician, or we went someplace and there was an issue, I would follow up and generally address the issues. If it meant coordinating with an agency president, coordinating with some of the operating folks or labor relations at the time, I would do whatever needed to be done for the position. So I did that for a year and then came to New York City Transit. I came to New York City Transit as a deputy line manager at the time for the L line. And then I became a general manager for the 3 line, then took over the 2 and 3 line. And then with the shift in the organization, they went back to what was traditionally New York City Transit. I wind up as the assistant chief officer. I handled the 7 line first for the rehabilitation of the 7 line. So a lot of the work that went on with, you know, doing 7, 8, 9 projects in the tube at the same time. I was leading all of those efforts, the coordination with the contractor and what was CPM at the time, and coordinating all the work train movements and flagging, and it was crazy, but exciting. And then I moved on to the assistant chief of subdivision C. From there, I went on to the chief officer of field operations, in charge of all train operators and conductors. And then from there, it was a natural progression to go to chief officer of the rail control center, because I had the rail control center side at both the Long Island Railroad and Penn Station Central Control. So then went to New York City Transit for the chief officer of rail control center. And then Staten Island Railway, vice president and chief officer for Staten Island Railway. And now I'm back here. It has been a whirlwind of challenges, but you know, it has opened my eyes to this organization like no other. I'm grateful for the experience, because I've taken every opportunity that they've literally given me to learn, which has been, you know, wonderful. You generally don't get the opportunity in many other organizations to see the things that I've seen, and it's been great. I've worked with some really, really great leaders. I've learned something from every single one of them, even if it's not what to do, but I have learned something from everyone. So that's my background. That's what got me here. I will tell you, I am not special. I just work really hard. I pay attention to the details, and I try to plan for the future. I think that most of the hard work gets done at the lower levels, but you have to give them the ability and the tools to do the job. You know, and so far it's been great at pushing me to where I am now.
Lee Sanders still speaks really highly of you.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, it's been great. Lee was great. So I'll talk a little bit. I wasn't sure exactly what you guys wanted to hear, so I'll talk about since I've gotten this position. So right now, I'm covering for Frank Giesecke, who was the executive vice president of Subways. Frank handled the maintenance away side, DC, car equipment, as well as service delivery, or RTO, our train operators. The challenge is Frank worked for Sally, and Sally was the overall senior vice president of Subways. So Sally has moved on, Frank has moved on. And so it kind of leaves me in a position where I'm doing both roles, but you can't really act in both positions. So I am acting executive vice president with the duties and responsibilities of the senior vice president. So it's been interesting. So far coming into the job, some of the major challenges have really been on the hiring side. I'm sure everyone here is aware of the challenges that we've had with the finances. So having a lot of that freed up to us has allowed us to start hiring. The challenges are seen in multiple levels within the organization. So from an executive perspective, we've lost a lot of our talent. You know, between Frank leaving, Sally leaving, John Santa Maria leaving, who's the vice president of car equipment, Barry Greenbat, the vice president of service delivery, Joe Joyce, his last day will be tomorrow. He's the vice president of maintenance of way. So we have lost, and there are a ton of folks that the following level down, you know, the chief electrical officer, Dan Ronan, he retired. The chief officer of elevators and escalators, he retired. It's just, there are so many people that have left this organization. And so one of the first challenges is, how do you maintain today? And at the same time, trying to hire up to these folks who have never really been in a position to do the things that they're currently being tasked to do. So it's that itself has been a huge challenge, selecting people. I am not of the perception that we select the person who has been who has been here 35, 40 years and feels that they're entitled to it. To me, a person that gets the job should earn the job, and they should be a person who could be a visionary, could see things differently. And that may not necessarily be the people who are here currently, which is a different mindset than what had been previously kind of employed. So, so it's been taking me a little longer to select the right people for the job, but I am confident that when the folks are selected, they will be ready for what's in front of them.
Do you have a candidate for succeeding John Santamaria at this point?
I have a couple options. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Glad that's being worked. That's a very important position.
Yeah. So
especially
it's
with the 211s and other cars coming.
Right. So on the car equipment side, what's interesting is a lot of the folks at the support folks, the assistant chiefs, the generals, the design team, their organization hasn't shifted much. So, you know, John's departure was a big one. But if I compare it to a maintenance away who has lost not only their top head, but 2 levels below as well, my immediate concern is for the maintenance away side, signals, the power, but I do have a very, very close eye on the car equipment side as well. It's definitely a priority of mine.
Wow, cannot imagine what you're going through, all of those needs and and the shortage of people at the moment. Wow.
Yeah. So so even if you look at, you know, so we have a release of the hiring freeze. You know, we started the process of hiring train operators, and just to try to give people context, it may take us from the point that they say, okay, go, it may take us 9 months to bring on an actual train operator. If I'm including the fact that I'm just promoting someone from within. So when you take in the amount of time that it takes to qualify these individuals, to train them, to get them the field time and the posting time necessary just to get them in speed. And now I have a brand new employee that has been trained, but not necessarily the best at their job. And I'm taking on a whole lot of people at the same time. You have to worry about the quality of training and the time that you invest in these employees. It's different than just hiring, you know, 20 people at a clip where they're being infused in with a lot of other people who have the experience. But when you have a large gap in the time that you hire and you have to hire on 200 people, your gaps are all over the place. So so that's where we are right now. It will take a while before we get to the place where we are set. So what I've proposed to Sarah, just to address that specific problem, is we'll be bringing on a group of supervisors whose sole function right now, if you take any one supervisor, their responsibility for hourly employees ranges between 35 and 50 employees. So what that means is, if I am a TSS or train service supervisor, in addition to responding to trains breaking down and door problems, I also have 35 to 45 employees that I have to oversee who are on different trains throughout the system, who may work different tours that are different than mine. And so you can imagine the level of real attention that those employees wind up getting. It's very difficult to have a quality interaction with them. So what we proposed is having a small group of TSSs added to what we currently have. And these supervisors would function solely on our targeted population of those who are having a little bit more. You have 2 groups of people. You have those who have less than a year in title, and you have those who have operating infractions or time and attendance issues. Those people who need a little more attention than the average train operator / conductor. And you focus it. That person now, instead of having 35 to 50 people, that person has 10 people, and you can have quality interactions with that person. You can address challenges. hey, listen, you're coming in too fast at the station because of the grade. You really need to adjust the speed of the train earlier, or you're going to overrun a station. Just so you know, in the winter, because it's a little cooler, you're going to have to worry about breaking this train even further back. You know, that type of experience you don't get. You could have a really great train operator right now when the weather's great outside who struggles in the winter. And that's the stuff that's very difficult to teach. But you need to have a level of engagement that doesn't currently exist. So that's something that I plan on having in effect before the end of the year.
So with these temporary TS, trained supervisors, that would be until you got the right people in the positions, correct?
Yes. Yeah, and it will take time to do that, because like I said,
and Interim President Feinberg has okayed this procedure, right?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. She sees the value in it. She supports it. So the challenge now is TSSs come from the population of current dispatchers and train operators. And so if you're short 150 train operators, to take 50 or 25 train operators and to move them to your regular train service supervisors and to pull the good group of TSSs, because not every supervisor is made for training, right? Not every supervisor has that as their specialty. And so you really want to select the people who are made more for that function, as opposed to just letting whoever wants to do it. So I think on the you have that issue on the management side, the leadership side, and it does trickle down into the hourly side as well. So we will not be out of the vacancy game for a very long time. This hiring freeze will have years worth of detriment to us, and on top of that, we still have the COVID restrictions for training. So I can't have a class of 40 train operators, because we just don't have the ability to have them in the same space under the current restrictions that we have for COVID. So there are a lot of challenges that we're trying to weigh. We're trying to see how we can infuse more virtual training, but the reality is a lot of your real training on a train are hands-on, in your face, operating equipment. So you can't be a computer operator and be successful in the field.
So has this affected quality of service in your estimation? Obviously, the shortage of train operators has, but
yes, absolutely. So while I'm less concerned about the actual infractions, I feel like we haven't had any new people on in a very long time. So you have a lot of seasoned people that are operating. But the challenge is you now have a lot less people than what you need to maintain your daily service.
Yeah.
So it becomes a juggling act of, how do I best cover the vacancies or choose which jobs are not covered? How can I extend a job without, obviously, when you're operating a train, you can't extend it too much, because then you start running into safety concerns. But how can I extend it so I cover a trip here and there, or partial portion of the trip, without having a detriment to the service? So it is, like I said, it's a constant battle, and until we get to the place where we're actually, bringing on these folks, it's going to be a challenge. I think that was one of the main benefits of having that supplement that we had for the F line, for the C line. It really just gave us the better ability to be able to manage the current workforce that we had. But now we're back to full service, and we haven't really shifted. We haven't brought anybody into actual seats yet. We've started the process for hiring, but there's no additional people in seats.
Go ahead,
Lisa.
So with great challenges come great opportunities sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you given, I don't know if this gives you the opportunity to look at sort of a structural change to the way the whole operation, that your whole operation and your whole shop runs, or, you know, it's turning the ship in a mighty way. That's going to take a long time. And I know that there are a lot of different forces at play, and involved. So, you know, do you see 10 years down the road, any of the work that you're starting to do here coming out differently on the other end? That's one question I'm going to ask. And the other is, because the ship has already turned in some ways, how are the interactions that you and your office and your shop have different with some of the capital work that's happening now than maybe it would have been, you know, when it was all before it was transformed or consolidated?
So, so I think there's two things. So answering your first question, when to me, the better we do in training some of the folks that we have, the better organization we have in place, the better long-term we will be. So as an organization, and I don't use this as criticism, as an organization, Subways, we have been really good at handling the monumentous tasks that are in front of us. Like, okay, we got the service is a problem, we need to address it, let's address it. There's a derailment, okay, everybody hands on deck, let's address it. There's a hurricane. We do a great job of handling the challenges that are in front of us. I think where we can do better or have some opportunities is looking at the longer term vision. I think there are huge opportunities there. I'll give you an example. You know, we have CBTC on the L line, we have CBTC on the 7 line, both very different. There are lessons learned from both of them. We've accepted that we're now going to have CBTC on the Queens Boulevard. As an organization, we should be looking at the opportunities as well as the challenges with the current systems that we have. And those decisions, what we look into should show where we're going in the future. We should be utilizing that to fuel where we go in the future. And it's something that we certainly need to be paying more attention to than what I feel we've done in the past. So some of the things that I've talked to about Sarah is we need to have a group who focuses within Subways, who focuses more on the strategic vision of where Subways needs to be headed. C&D, for example, their function is to put out projects. And so CBTC is a project. And generally, Subways is great at accepting a project. But the challenge is that project going to be what's best for the organization? If I accept that C&D says the best way to bring in CBTC is to remove all of the wayside signals and just go with CBTC. Okay, great. That sounds great. I'll accept the program. But if it doesn't work, if there are challenges, if we have a failure, can New York City, can Queens Boulevard accept a headway of 10 minutes? Is that acceptable? So as an organization, there has to be a decision made early on that, yes, you're here to deliver a product, but the product has to meet these specifications. This is what we accept. This is what we would like to see in the end product. So Lisa, so I think part of that is you have to think of your organization being a lot more strategic. And those are not necessarily the same resources that do your emergency response and your broken rails and they're not the same people. I can tell you I have really great mechanics out there. I have some managers that they're the first person under a derailed train and they will be there until the train is re-railed. But I cannot ask that person to sit down and tell me what's going to happen next week because they cannot, it's not in their core competency to plan ahead. So you do need someone that can see not just what's right for me and my engineering or what's right for a maintenance away or what's right for car equipment, but ultimately what's right for the organization and for customers, where we need to be going. So that's something I talked about with Sarah. It's something she has agreed to, and it is something that you'll start seeing.
Great, thank you. Chris, your hand is up. Unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Chris.
Chris, we're not hearing you. No,
We can see you, but we can't hear you.
you got issues again, Chris.
And I have to get ready.
Chris, maybe take your headphones off and just speak into the phone.
You've got a great smile, Chris, but I can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Chris.
Guys, hear me? Guys, hello. Can somebody say something so I can hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Now we
that's
can-
all I need to hear. Okay. Yeah, because Andrew, just letting you know, you do go in and out, but everyone else is not, just to letting you guys know. The main question I like to, first of all, I'm Chris Petit-Grant. My other hats are ACTA accessibility. My concern is still going to be some concerns of the edges that already been the hump, because Edith Prentice in the past always had the same issues I do. If the concern is I'm going to use 59th Street Columbus Circle as one example. If you're on the B train or the C on the local track, there is a massive gap in the middle of the platform. Yes, I did put a complaint in, Andrew, but the concern is the safety of a person getting off. It's not 100% safe. I have put this in. I hope you can please do something about these humps that a wheelchair and a walker must get off, as well as any mobile device must get on and off safely. There is some safety concern about this even today as well. Thank you.
Chris, what station is that again?
59th Columbus Circle.
Thank you.
59th
One of the
Street
earliest
Columbus
stations
on the
done,
local
too.
directions on the local track. There are gaps. I took the picture. I already put it in with the accessibility division. But since we have the subway person here, it will be, that is something that needs to be checked, as well as other stations in other areas where accessibility, where the elevators are. Some pumps are not, there is no hump. Some
Chris,
do
is
have
it both uptown and downtown at Columbus
That's
Circle?
what I said, both directions, up and down,
Okay,
downtown.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. I'll definitely take a look at it. Is it mostly on the curve of the station, or are we talking about in the center of the station? Is it at the ends?
It's definitely the middle of the platform where the accessible access to where the conductor is. There is a gap. And it's not, and the hump is not, it looks like the hump is not really there. If a motorized wheelchair gets on or off, they can do a fly torpedo, but a walker can actually flip in the air and get themselves hurt. There is concern about this. And I have brought this up with the accessibility division, and needs to be done as soon as possible. There is a really safety issue there.
All right, thank you. If you wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't mind forwarding what you forwarded to Andrew, and then Andrew can pass it off to me, I'll definitely take a look.
yep, I will do that.
Andrew, I will send it to you by tonight or first thing in the morning.
Thank you, Chris. Shaul, your hand is up.
Yeah. You mentioned about auxiliary wayside signaling briefly. A major percentage of the cost of installing CBDC, especially on Queens Boulevard, you can see it is installation of auxiliary wayside signaling, which is not needed for most of the time. It adds additional parts that can fail. And other similar systems like Toronto have work trained CBDC. Can you speak to our RTO's vision on that?
Sure. Well, I can tell you what my vision is, but I can't tell you what the organization's vision is at this point. I can tell you what my vision is. So the New York City Transit is not like any other place. So I visited Toronto. I was part of a LEAD program, which takes executives from different agencies and you go around to their different organizations. You see what challenges they have, what they do well, and what they don't do well. The day I went there, they had a CBTC failure for their they weren't able to get trains out of the yard. It was one location that they had a failure. They didn't have the ability to move trains out of the yard. That failure would cripple New York. It would cripple New York. So while we may not need all of the signals, the wayside signals, you do need a certain level of service here that is not going to be anywhere else, right? So I think the reality is when you look at a place like Toronto, first of all, they when they introduce it, generally introduce it to the whole entire system. We don't have the ability to do that. You look at Queens Boulevard. Queens Boulevard may not be done from end to end for the next 15 years. So we take for the next 20 years, maybe. So we take portions of system, we introduce it, and then you're introducing it with old and new, which creates a whole host of challenges that are different. But then I go back to what I said earlier. If you look at the L line or the 7 line, and you say, have you had any full CBTC issues? Have you had times when the system completely shut down? Absolutely, yes. Do you have trains that run in bypass every day? Do you have trains that run in bypass every tour? What would be the impact to your rush hour if you had one train that's running in bypass and you have no wayside signals? What would be the impact? And is that acceptable for our rush hour? So I think with us, we have to weigh the risk versus the cost of installing the wayside signals. And it is fine, you're right. You know, it is definitely cheaper. And when it's operating properly, it's perfect. When it's not operating properly, I guarantee you. So the fallback system for the 7 line requires that you lose express service. That's just the way the system is designed. That might be acceptable for the 7 line pre-rush hour, but the rush hour of the 7 line at the height of its peak, just going local is a challenge. And while it may be acceptable for one rush hour, customers will not be happy with doing that 2, 3, or anything more than that. So I think we just have a different challenge on the New York side that we have to kind of marry. We have to worry about the balance between the two.
I also have just one more question, if that's possible. I know there have been some efforts with track barriers, and I was wondering if you could speak to any plans to address delays and capacity losses driven by flagging.
So there have been some efforts with what is safe and what's not safe, what's allowable for a track barrier. There have been some recent discussions on materials that can be used. So I was in Subdivision C. I was the assistant chief officer when the 2 construction flaggers were struck by a train. So and one passed away. I will share with you that is something that no one wants to be the manager responding to the hospital, dealing with the family. It's just not something you want to do. So track safety for me, I always look at the worst case scenario. I'd love to run more service, but I also understand the consequences if we don't get it right. So any changes that we introduce on the track safety side will be handled with a high level of scrutiny. To me, I think we should really be focused on the outages that we have. We have great opportunities in fast track. I don't know that we're making the best use of the opportunities within fast track. We have a lot of capital work going on. Are we working together to take the best, to utilize those outages to do not just capital work, but also our maintenance activities? I think there are some opportunities for improvement with what we currently do, but I won't commit to changes on the barrier side until they're totally, without a doubt, safe.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, Demetrius, we got a demonstration once of ultra wideband and how accurate it was. Would that be, it's supposed to work in conjunction with CBTC, but if CBTC went out, would the ultra wideband part of the service still still operate?
So there have been a lot of discussions about ultra wideband and how it will be introduced. And I think at this point, there has not been a organization decision on whether or not they are going to progress with it. The challenge
beauty of it was it could be put on any car. You just put in the signals. It could just, we watched the train operate. It can distinguish between a person and a rat in the tunnels. I mean, it was pretty impressive.
It does have potential. And so they're looking at the safety certification or getting the safety certification for it now. Assuming that it does get safety certified, there is a possibility that it'll be rolled out as a duplicative system on the Queens Boulevard. Obviously, duplicative systems have additional costs, but it may be of good benefit for long term to see whether or not this is something we really want to move forward with instead of having zone controllers on future systems. I think there is a huge possibility, particularly on the flagging side that we talked about, the ability that the system can identify markers on the roadbed if you set it up as a marker. So the system does have the potential. You know, I always worry about the short term of the two systems and how you maintain the two systems, how you know that the two systems are functioning, and generally making sure that the two systems don't counteract one another. I think there may be some benefits even in the short term if we're going to move forward with CBTC on the 211s anyway. So I think that's without a doubt. If you roll it out even as a trial, just to have improvements in track worker safety and have the benefits of the system itself, I think you can have some short-term benefits and long-term, especially as a trial. But I'm certainly open to the idea. But I think the organization hasn't really decided whether or not they want to expend the resources for a duplicative system.
Yeah. And speaking of the benefits of CBTC, if you have it on the Queens Boulevard line, but you only have it as far as 47th, 50th Street on 6th Avenue and 50th and 8th on 8th Avenue, what happens when those more frequent trains reach the territory where you can't go more frequently?
So, and Andrew, maybe you've seen something that I have seen. I have seen them say CBTC offers the possibility of operating new trains. I have not seen them use that in conjunction with the Queens Boulevard, because the reality is the terminals themselves may not offer the current terminals may not offer the flexibility to add additional trains in it.
Right.
So you're right. To run additional trains within small portions of a track make no sense if you don't have the outlets that are able to handle it.
Exactly. Jason, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes, Demetrius. Quick question. I know that in the past there was a program called Track Sweep that did a very deep cleaning into the tracks. I haven't heard no update since 2018. What you guys in transit are going to do about this? Because I've been seeing more litter in the tracks than ever before. And this could be the main cause of track fire. And that's something that we want to prevent. And also, Demetrius, I want to know why we're having the train brakes being activated more than once in a single day in a more, let's say, often fashion that we never have seen before.
Jason, those are difficult questions. So I'll start with the vacuum with the cleaning, track cleaning. So a lot of things happen as part of the SAP plan. Track cleaning was one of them. You know, one of the things that I would have talked about that I would love to talk about is, you know, as an organization, we selected certain programs that we would institute, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years. We demonstrated the benefit of those programs. And frankly, with COVID, the loss of headcount, it is not clear how many of those programs are currently being staffed, how many of those initiatives are actually being are still being used. So one of the things that I talked to the team about since I got here is, one, identifying the things that we've made progress with. So say, for example, the speed team that we targeted, all these improvements, you know, what is the current status, what still needs to be done, where do we still have opportunities. COVID shifted a lot of our viewpoints on these things. Track cleaning, the use of, we have currently vacuum trains. I can tell you that because of manpower shortages, which operate the work trains, that operate the work trains, which pull the vacuum trains, we haven't been operating them as frequently as we used to. So getting that program up and running enables us to be able to do it without even having people on the roadbed. So I agree with you. We certainly need to bump it up. We certainly need to get back to some of the programs that we had prior from, like I said, that SAP time period. But I think a good look at all of the overall programs, all of the benefits that we had over the last 3 years, and saying this still needs to be done. This is still an opportunity. And I'll tell you, the fact that we only have, 2 and change million people versus, what we had back then, it gives us a lot of room to play. So as the customers start coming back, we need to make sure that we're still able to maintain that same level of service that they come to expect before the pandemic hit.
Oh, thank you, Demetrius, for that.
And you asked about the breaks
and if you want to answer the other one,
yes, the breaks in emergency. So breaks in emergency could happen for any number of reasons, right? Breaks in emergency could be a person on a train has an emergency medical condition and someone within the train pulls the cord. Breaks in emergency could be the conductor observes something on the roadbed or on a platform as he's going past, and he feels it's a danger to the train. He pulls the brakes. The train is considered breaks in emergency. Breaks in emergency could be a person comes into contact with something. It could be debris on the roadbed. It could be a mechanical issue. So breaks in emergency is used to capture a lot of different categories, but the train itself is called breaks in emergency, but that is not the root cause of why it is breaks in emergency.
Oh, understood, Demetrius. Thank you very much for answering the questions. And if I have any concerns, and if I see anything in the system, I'll send it either to Lisa or Andrew, and they will absolutely forward to you.
Jason, you're a legend, so I appreciate that.
Of course, thank you very much.
One of the things I always say I miss most about the committee meeting days is sitting next to Jason.
Oh, I would love those dates to come back.
Oh, I know. We'll miss your birthday again this year.
Yeah.
I know that we're close to the end. I know Shaul has one more question.
But also, Demetrius, maybe the email that I sent you about the issue at Fulton Center, we have the Transit Council member, Stuart on with us now. He can give you a little more description about what time of day and how frequently he has seen litter at the Fulton Mall station on the pedestrian walkway. Stuart, you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I've been on the entire time, but I didn't think it was appropriate for people to see me eating pizza. But
especially if you're not sharing.
Exactly. Virtually, you can have a slice. I've been at work during the entire pandemic, so I see the Fulton station daily. And at our last meeting, I had expressed some concerns about the frequency of cleaning. The station, as you know, spans a great distance from William Street to Broadway. And to to answer the question that Andrew was posing, I'm still not seeing in the evenings, that there's any effort to pick up debris or even do wiping. I live in Brooklyn and on the F line, and I do see frequent cleaning, even at the hour that I get home in the evening, taking place at turnstiles and stairwell rails and frequent touch points. But Fulton Street has had its share of issues with homeless population. And I don't know if that's contributing to a debris at the end of the day, but you could tell if a floor is grimy or dirty, or as well as people just leaving stuff. On other meetings, we had discussed the frequency of physical station cleanings, the platform. So my observations were on the mezzanine levels, and there are multiple levels. The platform seems to be okay, but it's towards the evenings. So I'm not sure whether Andrew had said before you got on the call that there were 3 different cleanings that take place. So I'm not sure whether one is being missed or what I'm seeing is after that takes place. But thank you.
So Stuart, a couple things to just kind of keep in mind. So as we're hiring back up, right? The HR department is we're going to target the train operators, conductors. That is going to be the first line of folks that we're hiring. We're going to hire our track workers. We're going to hire our signal maintainers. Later on, we'll get to hiring some of the vacancies and cleaners, just because you have to prioritize the folks that you're bringing into the organization. I say that because we still have, at this point, an obligation to clean all of the touch points twice a day within the stations. So what that means is, without an increase in your actual headcount and cleaning, the folks that would normally be scrapping, cleaning out the trash cans, are also doing the sanitizing of the station. So, where Demetrius would have been able to make the rounds several times to make sure that I'm cleaning up regularly, I now have to fit in the sanitation, a sanitation of all of the touch points within the stations. And it is definitely more challenging, definitely less visible at some of our larger facilities than they are the smaller facilities. So what we've done is we've tried to expand some of the locations, particularly on the borough, the further out locations. So we've given them more stations to clean, so we can focus our resources into some of the business district areas. But that's kind of a catch-22 too, because you don't want to wind up in a situation where you're neglecting one community or another as well. Yeah. So I will tell you, it's a very, very difficult balance to meet. And I'm not going to say that we have the right solution at this point. They've given me the numbers of the number of people that are currently assigned there. The fact that the current way of scheduling, the current way of backfilling a job, and again, I'll tell you again, I said from the beginning, I'm not a politician, so the current way of backfilling a job is if your location is open, I have someone that has stations next to you cover your location. So now they have twice the amount of work to do. That's what we're doing right now. It makes it more challenging. It does take a lot longer, and it may leave larger gaps where the dirt or the debris sits. We're getting there, but it is not with the same frequency as we had done in the past. And the sanitation on top of that just makes it it's a lot different. We've requested, and at some point we think that pandemic will get to a place where we can reduce down to once a day sanitation, and then we'll reallocate the resources to doing a little more of the scrapping that we were doing prior. But remember, literally every touch surface, handrails, all your MVM machines, and some of these stations, Fulton Street is, look at how many handrails are there. It's just,
Right.
it's insane.
It's massive. No, I appreciate your
And
effort.
so many lines go through there, so many people.
Absolutely. I appreciate the effort. There has been a change, just not back to what it was.
Yeah.
Something, you know, someone in government like myself has similar issues, but something for a position like this that doesn't require extensive skills, you may have flexibility in hiring temporary staff to help with this. We haven't had the volume of passengers at that station. And I don't want to dwell on this station. It's a general thing that could be applied to other large stations. We don't have the tourists back here downtown in any great numbers. But that may be something, if funds permit and if work rules permit, that you consider. They've done it before, the gang cleaning concept. Because if we're trying on one hand to have a campaign to get people to ride the subways again, the appearance as well as the feelings of safety are things that people think about. So it's a total package that they're looking at. You know, we're selling a product. Oh, things have changed. We're doing cleaning of trains. We're doing X. But if they see otherwise, you know, they may not buy into the message. And then, you know, we've spun our wheels for nothing.
Yeah. So Stuart, I'm sure you know we have certain contractors, particularly on the car side right now, that are assisting with our cleaning efforts. And Sarah has said publicly that we are going to maintain the same level of cleanliness in the future. This is what we're going to do. I am going to say it is going to be a challenge. We have to come up with a way of doing things differently, particularly if we do not have the contractors that we currently have on at the terminals. We have to find a way of doing it differently, not only without the contractors, but different to what we did before, because to me, that wasn't enough either. So we have to figure out something different.
Much appreciated. And your political skills are...
Oh. No, I'll
Yes,
probably get in
indeed.
trouble after this.
Demetrius, thank you so much for being with us today. We wish you the best in getting your full staffing back and dealing with these hundreds and hundreds of impossible issues that you've been dealing with.
Thank you all for having me, and I wish you all the best. If there's anything I can do, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have several follow-up questions that we'll email you rather than keep you
Awesome.
here for the rest of the afternoon. But
All right,
thank you so much for your time.
Thank
and
you
for
once
everything
again.
that
Have a
you
great
do.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too. I'm sure we'll talk over the weekend, Andrew.
I'm sure. Bye-bye. Great guy. Lisa, what, do you have anything else?
No, I know Shaul had a question, and so did
Okay.
Eric, but.
Were those
the-
for Demetrius?
Yes, so Eric had a question about the restrooms, and that was, I let him know that that was something that Sarah Feinberg said yesterday she was going to take another look at again.
Yes. Yes, it came up yesterday.
Yeah.
And
Shaul,
Shaul's question was?
about the speed unit.
Oh, okay, yeah. We know people at the speed unit, so. We can, if you send it to us, we can send it along. Anyone have any other issues before we wish everyone a happy holiday weekend?
PCAC is next week, next Thursday at 12 noon, where we will be transitioning to a new PCAC chair, giving Andrew some of his time back, but not all of it, because we're never going to actually fully let him go as PCAC chair. So, but he only has to keep one hat handy now. Instead of
there's
actually
still
two
several.
hats instead of three, right?
Well, there's several more too.
Right.
There's still 4 hats.
Get him a hat rack.
And a
Yep,
hat rack. Andrew Albert, not just a hat rack.
right, exactly.
See you next week.
See you next week, folks. Have a great weekend.
See you next week.
All right, have a great Memorial Day weekend, everyone. See you
Yes,
next
thank
week.
you.
Same
Have
to
a
you
great
all.
holiday weekend.
Bye.
See ya, Mike.